All right, everybody, welcome back to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast and video cast. We're brought to you every week to try and bring you some inspiration and motivation to help drive your triathlon meanderings during the year. And I've got a great interview for you this week. We're joined by the lovely Jessie Hassall, and we're going to hear all about her. If you've heard before, we had her on the show a couple of years ago on the audio podcast. This will be your first time, Jessie, joining us on the video podcast to hear all about your journey from half iron at Outlaw X back in September 2020. And somehow now you've managed to complete 3 iron distance races in 13 months. So yeah, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you. Yeah, really good.
So the journey from, I guess we'll set the scene. The last podcast that we did, we took your journey from essentially, I was listening back, never having done even a run, like you were stealing your sister's running shoes to try and go out, and how do humans even go for a run? That went all the way through the journey to completing a couple of half iron distances at that point. And the interview ends with you saying, what I really want to do is go and complete a full iron distance. That's where we ended last time. So the first question I want to ask you today was, what was it that initially motivated you to want to go and do a full Ironman?
Oh, well, this is a bit of a weird one, actually. So deep down in like the pit of my brain, I'd heard of Ironman, but didn't fully really know what it was, and had no idea that it was triathlon. They were not connected in my head, weirdly. I don't know why. And I was more of a swimmer, not really a swimmer, but I did it for like just to keep fit. And I'd go to the pool when my husband played badminton, and I'd just churn out all the lanes, and I'd do an hour, and I'd be like, oh, I can do 2.5k in an hour. And I was like, that's cool. I wonder how far I could go if I did 2 hours. And then I went and did 5k, and I thought, oh, that seems like quite a long way. And then sadly, in 2014, my cousin did the Ride 100, and he died on the Ride 100. He had a cardiac arrest, and he'd been training cycling to do that. And afterwards, we decided we wanted to get his bike over the finish line. So there was a big like mass effort, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll give cycling a go. So my husband and I, my dad, we went out and we did the Ride 100, and it was so hard training for it. Like I really underestimated going out 3 times a week, and but I had no direction. I just did it. And then after that, I was like, oh, I can cycle 100 miles, and I thought, oh, I wonder how far an Ironman is. It's a shame I can't run. So then that's when I started running. And then I saw a guy with a tattoo on his leg when I was running on the half marathon that I did, my first half marathon. I thought, oh, that's a weird tattoo. It looks like really familiar, but I don't know what it is. And so I Googled the tattoo, and I was like, that's an Ironman. He's an Ironman. I was like, oh, right. Well, if I can swim 5k and I can cycle 100k, if I could learn to do a marathon, maybe I could get one of those. But I didn't get a tattoo, just so you know.
You didn't get the tattoo, did you?
No.
Never went for it. No. Do you know, it's so funny that was my almost exact same experience. I did my first one out in Australia, and there was a tiny little triathlon club in the town I was living in. But, 60, 70 people would turn up every Saturday to do this local triathlon, and it was $2 Australian to enter every time. And one of the women went over and did Ironman New Zealand and came back with a tattoo. And I remember thinking, that's amazing. You've done an Ironman. That's unbelievable. And everyone in the club and we're going back here to I can say this, the turn of the century. It was the early 2000s, when it was really rare to meet somebody, even in Australia, where there was this massive culture of it. No one else in the club had done one. And when she came back with this Ironman tattoo, I remember thinking, if I ever do an Ironman, I am so going to get one of those tattoos. And then later that day, it rained during the race, and it almost never rained there. So the roads are really greasy. I crashed on the bike and sliced the back of my shoulder open. You can see this here maybe still. And I got this scar on the back of my shoulder. Yeah, it was a real good. It had stitches and everything. And I thought to myself, well, I've kind of got this is my personal Ironman tattoo. That's kind of my badge of honor of, I don't need to, because I was quite scared of getting an actual tattoo.
I mean, mine's not as good, but I've got a little, scar from where when I run, it's like chafed on my chest. That's all I've got. That's my version.
That's the thing. Every time you see it in the mirror, every time, like my son growing up when he was little, he would kind of run his finger backwards and forwards across it and say, "What's that, Daddy?" And I could tell him this story of, this is, and I like that idea, like the scars are the things that they don't define you, but it's the thing you've overcome, but you carry the little reminder of it. Yeah. So yeah, good. There we go. We've got our own little scar club rather than an Ironman tattoo club.
No,
so that didn't really answer though. I'm going to call you on this. You didn't really answer how did Ironman get in your awareness then? How had you heard of it? You'd seen the tattoo, but weren't quite aware of the event.
Honestly, don't know. Like, it's just something that has been, it's like the ultimate craziness, isn't it? In the back of my head, like, oh, could you imagine doing an Ironman? And I didn't really know what it was. And it is weird because now I think about it, I'm like, well, I'm really into Marvel. So like superheroes, very cool. Like, so I know about Iron Man, but they're not the same thing. But obviously I've thought about it. But it is, I guess that's the success as a brand, isn't it? That brand can permeate your subconscious without actually knowing what it is. I didn't even know it was a triathlon. That's how ridiculous it is. And my friend Kate, she was like, I said, oh, I'd love to be able to do an Ironman, but I don't know if I could do the marathon yet. And she was like, well, why don't you do a triathlon first? And I was like, what's that? And she was like, Ironman is a triathlon, right? And I was like, no. And she went, oh my goodness. She's like, just start with a small one, go and do leads, and then see what you feel. Work up to it. Like, oh, okay, right. Okay.
Brilliant. Okay, so let's. One of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to publicize the previous podcast as well for people if they want to hear your backstory. But let's fast forward in time. Autumn of 2020, we're through the first kind of phase of the pandemic, and kind of triathlon reopens, and you managed to do Outlaw X at that point, didn't you?
Yeah.
Talk us through then the next journey to get yourself through to your first Ironman, which was Austria, which would have moved to September 2021.
Yeah. So after Outlaw X, I trained through the winter and it was all great. And then when it got nearer to July, they moved the race again to September, because they'd moved it previously and then moved it again. And that was quite hard because I was literally about to go into, I think it was like the biggest build bit just before. So that's quite soul crushing to get that.
It wasn't long before when they moved it, was it? It was, what was it, like 4 weeks before, 5 weeks before, maybe?
I think I was literally about to start my race sims or something, or the really long rides, and then it hit, and I was like, oh no, I've got up to like 5 hours and now I've got to drop down again. So that was a little disheartening. But and I remember having discussions with, because I went with Chelsea to Austria, my friend, and we just sort of like discussed. I said, I'm definitely going. Like, I've put so much into it. I have to go. I can't. If I don't go for the next option, then I just have to do it. So even if it wasn't ideal, I was going to do it anyway. Like, if I crawl around and it's miserable weather, I don't care. But it's interesting because like you have in your head this image built of what your race is going to be like, and like especially if you only plan on doing one, or you only plan on having that experience once, you want the best experience that you've ever had, and having the less than ideal is a little disheartening, but you don't know any better because you've never done it before. So going in September, leading up to that, and then going in September, it was like incredibly stressful because you had so much pressure put on you because you've trained for essentially 2 years and then it's been cancelled every time. You want it to be the best, as in like you want to finish it. That's what I wanted to do. But you know what I mean? Like, you want there to be a big crowd and everything else. And
yeah. And what was your experience like out in Austria? Because it's a long time ago now to think back, but crowds were actively discouraged, weren't they, at the time from going to be there? And that's obviously a big part of especially the Ironman Austria experience, which is renowned for being one of the biggest crowd supported events. Yeah.
It was really different, and having now done 3, I can honestly compare them all and like see clearly the difference. But my first things that I like experienced were there were so few women at the race, so few. Now I can see from other photos from this year, it was massively reduced. There were about a third the size of the competitors. I think they usually have like 4,000 people, and there was 1,000 people there. It was tiny, and everyone looked so fit compared to me. And I was like, with my bike, my normal bike, just going along, and everyone had a PT bike, and they looked like greyhounds. I'm just plodding along. I think that was the bit I was like, oh, right, okay. So the hardcore people have come out for this one because they're like, oh, yeah, I trained through COVID. I'm going to do it. And I was like, hi, I've just turned up to have a nice holiday.
Do you know, I think I'm almost sure of this at this point. I think everybody who's at an Ironman thinks everybody else at the Ironman is a real athlete and they shouldn't be there. Bar like the 3 people who are chasing for the win in both sexes. I think everybody has massive imposter syndrome, no matter what they try and tell themselves. I've got friends who have done 20 odd Ironmans, and I know they still feel the same way. There's always some voice in your head saying, now externally, I'm looking at my friend and going, well, you've just done the Dakar Ironman this summer. Of course you're in great shape. But there's something in his head going, yeah, but this didn't work. That's not worked. I've had this niggle. Everybody's got that doubt that they shouldn't really be there.
Yeah, no, that is totally a thing.
It doesn't help at the time, does it? But maybe it will if people are listening to, as you go to your race and you're standing there thinking,
it's okay, guys.
Everyone feels the same. Yeah. Maybe we should all get t-shirts with "I feel the same" written on the back.
That's why when I started doing triathlon, I had a t-shirt and it said "World's Okayest Runner." And I always wore it for races, and then people would spot me and be like, "Oh yeah, that's all right." I needed one that was like "World's Okayest Triathlete."
Yeah, it's a real thing. The fear is real, isn't it?
It is.
So Austria, then, come on, talk us through the swim, bike, run. But before that, let's go back to the how you got there across. What was the experience of having it cancelled at the last minute and then having to sort of let it go and then get back into it again?
Well, for me, I think I've been hyper focused on it for so long that it was just like, oh, okay, it's not now. It's just going to be in another couple of months. I'll just keep going. And that was totally fine for me. And I appreciate that not everyone is like that. But I was like, I really enjoy training. I really enjoy training. So it's a blip. It just delays the stress a little of having to worry about COVID vaccines and all that stuff that was rubbish at the time. I'm like, okay, I don't have to worry about that. I'll have my second booster or whatever it is by then. It'll be okay. So in that way, it was, it was actually fine. But it's just the stress of the travel was actually greater than the stress of having to train again.
Yeah.
Getting there was a bit of a nightmare. Having to take my bike on the plane for the first time. That was interesting. And having to have passport. It was really interesting because everywhere you went in Austria, they wanted you had to show like a piece of paper to prove that you could sit in a cafe and stuff like that.
So it was like a real COVID passport type thing.
Yeah, you weren't allowed to sit until you'd shown them I think it was called a green pass or something. You were like, my green pass, I've had a COVID vaccine, please let me sit. So in that way it was quite stressful, and a lot of things were it was just a very strange kind of time. The race village is really nice. It's sort of near the lake and the town is quite far away, and because of the travel situation, we had to get tested like at certain times, and so you'd have to like walk all the way into town, and then I think we did so many steps just walking back and forth through town from the race village and back again. That was unnecessarily stressful.
It's hard enough anyway for your first Ironman, but having all of that layered on top, it's a real challenge. Did you feel the stress of that at the time? Was it something that was really conscious in your mind?
Yeah, because the ultimate fear was getting COVID before the race and then not being able to race. And that was the biggest fear, like the whole year, was not necessarily getting COVID and then recovering. It was just getting COVID the week before and not being able to race because you'd worked so hard for something that you really wanted, and then it could just not happen at all. That was terrifying. Yeah, actually, that was the most scary thing.
Yeah. You managed to avoid it then, and talk us through race day itself.
So the race day, it was amazing. So we walked down to the start. They have it so well organized, and yet I still managed to mess up because I thought, I don't need shoes because I didn't want to carry my shoes. So I ended up walking to the start line with no shoes on, which is really stupid. Like, they have systems to stop this happening, but I managed to do it. So I was walking barefoot like over the gravel, going, I'm gonna get glass in my foot. It's like a good mile to the start line. Yeah, it was amazing. That start, you can't compare it, how it feels to stand on the beach in your little pen and then play Thunderstruck and then everyone runs into the sea. It's just something like, oh, it's so amazing. It feels great. But because it was such a reduced amount of people there, like all the start pens, I was like, I'm going to go to the 1 hour 30 start pen. And I went down there and I was like, there's no one here because there's not that many people. So I'm going to keep going up. Just like, okay, I'll just start dancing here then instead. I had a little dance, starter dance. That's always good. And then we were running in and it was beautiful. The water was crystal clear, like just amazing place to race. And it's funny because what 3.8 kilometers feels like when you're in the water, but then for some reason on race day it feels so different. And with Austria, because I think 2/3 of it or maybe most of it is in the lake, and then it loops around and you go up the canal. And that was the best bit because you're like, oh yeah, something interesting, there's some gross stuff in the lake, yay, I can look at that. There was like a big pipe and I was like, yay, I'm gonna follow this pipe.
So is it like it's like a 3K loop, isn't it, that you go out and back and end up back in the canal and then everyone swims straight up? Is the water still clear in the canal? Is it still like crystal clear?
It's pretty gross. It's pretty gross.
Okay, so it's a proper canal.
When I got out, I had something stuck to my face and I don't know what it was. I think it was like a ginormous bug. It looked like a giant caterpillar stuck in my face, and I don't think about it, just throw it away.
Not great advertising for the event, this, Jess. It's a good job.
It was really beautiful, everyone. It was really beautiful.
Advertising dollars from Austria.
I'm sure it was lovely. Do you know what was really great? They have like a bridge and everyone stands on the bridge. So as you're swimming, you can see everyone on the bridge, and that's quite nice. It is lovely. I didn't mean it like that.
Hey, tell it like it is. People need to know. I think that's the biggest, like the real life. You need to know what you're entering before you enter for people. I think if you go to Austria, you want the crystal clear swim, but you need to know if you're entering, I don't know, some other race, that there's a good chance it's going to be a wavy sea swim. That like the reality of it's important. You can't enter, I don't know, Ironman Cork expecting the sea to look like it does Ironman Hawaii's video cast. Yeah. It's a real life thing, isn't it? Right. So the bike course then. The bike course at Austria, is it 2 or 3 loops these days?
It's weird. It's like an upper loop and then a lower loop. So you kind of cross over in the middle, but not by much. That was so beautiful. It was insane. But whoever told me it was flat is a liar, because it isn't. It's really not. It was because of COVID, it was quite lonely. And that really stuck out for us because Chelsea and I cycled, of course, not next to each other, but like we could see each other in the distance, and occasionally we'd switch places. But so we were the only two out there for miles and miles and miles. And that was quite disheartening, not seeing anyone, because it put the fear in you that you weren't going to meet cutoff. But I knew, because we did best bike split, I knew that we were fine, and we were hitting times that were perfectly fine. But that was quite a struggle. And even though there was COVID, people did come out and cheer on the bike course. It was really great. Like, people would sit on their driveways, and there was a bit where we went up this hill and they'd go hop hop hop. We're going up a hill, and there were some students all sitting smoking shishas on the side of the road, just come to cheer us all. They'd set up a little table out of a cable drum, just chilling, lots of barbecues. It was great. It was really, really great.
It really adds to that. It really adds to that festival atmosphere, doesn't it? When when people who live there have set something up in the garden and they're just going to watch for 4 hours as the competitors go by.
And they're so happy for you. It's really nice.
Yeah.
So lovely. And I mean, the bike course though, it's the thing that got me was there's this bit where you're cycling through where they do lots of logging, and they have all the logs lined up on the side of the road, and the smell of the pine hitting you is intense. It's just so amazing. It's incredible. I can't describe it. It's amazing.
Awesome.
And all the beautiful architecture, like these amazing bridges that come out, and you're like, it looks like something out of a postcard. I don't know, not a postcard, but like a poster, like an Art Deco poster. Amazing. But the first lap was a lot like that. The second lap, not so much. The second lap was a bit, I just wanted it to be over now. But
did you have any moments of doubt during the bike leg? Did you have any moments of darkness? And
no, I would say I didn't actually, because I knew that I knew what watts I had to hit, and I knew how fast I was going to go, and it was fine. And I knew that because it was post-COVID, this wasn't the normal, so I shouldn't expect a certain thing. And to be honest, I've done triathlons where I'm at the back of the race and I don't see anyone anyway, so I can't judge myself against what's happening anywhere else. And your start time is from when you go in the water. It's not from, I didn't start at the beginning of the race, so it makes sense that I wouldn't see many people. So it was totally fine. I was calm. I've made peace with that.
And that's really good, because I think you've perhaps underestimated how other people's experience of their race is, because lots of people don't, even people who are further up the field don't have that sort of same calm 6, 7, 8 hours on the bike of, this is fine, I've got my plan, I'm sticking to my watts, it's all good. They ride for, sometimes at the pointy end for 5 hours in terror of being a few watts down or a few minutes down, or especially if I feel sorry for the athletes who are driven by time and bike splits, and a few watts either way means you either success is under 520 or failure is over 520. That leads you to a miserable whole day out there. It sounds like you managed to get your inner chimp totally on board and banging his cymbals along with you for fun rather than hitting you with a stick.
Chimp and I were having a great day out. We were just seeing the sights. It was all great. I had my pretzels and my tri bars. It was all happy.
Tell us about the pretzels and the tri bars. Come on.
So Oxygenaddicts didn't believe that this was my fueling strategy, but it was. It most definitely was. So I thought, I need something interesting. I get really bored with my fuel on the ride. I get very, very bored very, very quickly. And I was living off like Cliff bars and naked bars. And I was like, this is dull. I need to spice it up a bit. So I thought, oh, do you know what? I really fancy a pretzel, and I'm going to Austria. That's like a theme. I should have pretzels, and I can put them on my tri bars and for easy access. And they just live there. I don't have to worry about putting them in a bag or anything. So I did. I bought like 3 pretzels, and I put them on the tri bars. And then every now and again, I just like have a nibble off one. But
so for the benefit of the people who are listening here, right? Because I've seen the photo of this. Maybe we can get the photo off you and we'll overlay it on the screen. These are not like a little, like a bag of crisps pretzels. They're not an inch across. These pretzels were the size of your face, weren't they? They're
the full-on Austrian proper pretzel, chewy, like bagel type pretzel. And I went to the Spa shop the day before, put them on.
Now, there's an element of this where I can't condone trying something on race day you haven't tried in training, but if you're going to try something,
it's not very aero.
It's not very aero, but you've got some nice simple baked carbohydrates there. So
true, and it was certainly not boring. But I did have a minor panic because I ate around 1 and I was like, it's intact, it's going to stay, it's fine. And then there's this bit where you go down a hill and it's got cobbles, and I was going gadung, 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 and all of a sudden one of them fell off, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get disqualified by Ironman. They're going to come for me because I've littered on their course. And I was so freaked out. I was like, just go really fast and they can't catch you.
Brilliant. So you make the end of the bike leg happily within the cutoff.
Yeah.
You and Chelsea still roughly in the same place at this point. So you managed to see each other in transition, and does it become a come on then, let's do this together at this point?
It was great. We were like, let's go. And then I'd say what followed was the hardest slog I've ever experienced on a run ever. It was really hard. It's the first 10K was in daylight, which was nice. And because Austria is usually in July, it's usually in daylight quite late. So people's finishing photos are usually in the daylight. This was dark almost immediately. And then we were saying, oh, it's a really nice temperature. And Chelsea said, oh, it would be nice if it was just a little bit cooler though, wouldn't it? And then it started raining. So thank you for that. And it rained the whole time. And but you know, props to the organizers though, because immediately as it started raining, they pulled out these amazing like Ironman branded ponchos. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And they kept trying to offer them to us. And we were like, no, we're English. We deal with the rain. We're fine. We don't need those. So we're just running around in the rain, smiling, chatting, having a great time, probably. But it did hurt. It really hurt.
Yeah.
And then at 10 o'clock, the beer came out on the aid station. And we knew that the party had really started.
What about they were offering beer out from the aid stations? They haven't really.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, like, but it happened at 10 o'clock because as soon as we went
official. That's not an official thing, surely. That's not an official Ironman branded.
I swear, like little cans of beer appeared. And we thought, oh my gosh, this is the golden part of the race that no one knows about.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
I didn't have one.
Tell me you didn't have a beer during the race. Yeah,
I didn't. I'm not a massive beer drinker, but it amused me greatly. That race, that bit of the race was tough because we had no spectators basically towards the end, because the students that were great, and they had like a boom box outside there. I think it must be student accommodation along the canal or something. And so every time we went past, we did like a little dance and had a great time. And then when the rain started, there was no one. But okay, our friends have gone now.
So you really had the lonely, dark, cold, rainy. Yeah.
If we hadn't have been together, it would have been super lame. Did
you have any periods of doubting you would finish during this?
No, because I feel like because we'd met that cutoff, we knew that if we walked it, we'd still make it. But we didn't want to walk that much, but we were walking a lot because my feet hurt so much. I don't know why, they just really did. And I had not really fueled properly on the run. I'm not great. Like I know it's stupid, and it took me 2 Ironmans to work it out that you need to fuel on the run. Because I really don't like gels, and I don't like eating when I'm running. So when I train, I just don't. And it never occurred to me that is absolutely necessary to do. So it wasn't until.
And I think that's really common. I really do. You can do a really long run. You can do a 2.5, 3 hour run in training and not need anything. You know, people who do it without even any water, but absolutely doesn't prepare you for how it's going to feel in an Ironman when you start and you've got 2 grams of carbohydrate left in your muscle stores. That's the big difference, isn't it? Yeah.
I think I had 1 Percy pig that Chelsea gave me. That was it.
Wow.
Really bad.
But you toughed it out.
We laughed.
You toughed it out. But this is the thing, right? You've done your first one. You wanted to get through it. You managed to get through it. You had to walk a lot and you were in a lot of pain, but you did it. You got through it and you got to the end. And it sounds like you went, right, okay, there are some things that we need to do differently going forwards.
Yeah.
Which is great. But you got through that first one. You toughed it out. Tell me about the finishing shoot.
Oh, it was incredible. I mean, there was no one there. But it was incredible still. I had images of what it would look like because I've seen, clips of it on the internet and friends' experiences, and there's like 1 million people and they're all screaming, and there was my husband, and that was it really. But it was still amazing to us, and it was quite emotional. Yeah, it was very emotional. Doing it together as well was amazing, like running down and with our hands in the air. It was great.
Yeah. It's a ridiculous distance to cover
Yeah.
on human power, isn't it? 226 kilometers human powered. It's it's insane when you think about it. And that most people consider a marathon to be the most challenging physical thing that they'll ever do. And you've done that after riding your bike for 180 kilometers and swimming for 4K in open water. It's
Yeah. It's a long
amazing.
day. It's
And
a
I
long
think all
day.
that, yeah, all that coalesces in your mind as you're coming down the finishing chute, especially that first time that you might have built up to this for certainly 1, but 2, 3, 4 years in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is the main thing. It's not the day necessarily. It's all of those hours of training before, the 15 hours a week for the last few weeks, and just, yeah, all that time that you spent on a turbo churning out the watts. And it all comes to that. And it's great. It does feel amazing.
So after you've completed your first one, then
Yeah.
that was September 21.
Yeah.
When did you start having the inklings of, well, I want to do another one now? Because people tend to go
Immediately.
two ways. Was it immediate for you? It was, I'm over the line and sign me up.
So somebody once said to me that, and I don't know if they meant it like this, but they were like, "Oh, you're going to be one of those people who only do one." And I was like, "What does that mean? What does that mean? I could do more than one if I wanted." And not in a, it's not in like a competitive way, just in a like, well, I did it and I saw it through, and then I kind of felt like I had unfinished business and I wanted to do it and do it like do it not, I don't know what the word is, but just like do it well, you know give it a proper not COVID related go.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a do it when there's no COVID restrictions part to it, and it
Yeah.
feels like the full experience. But there's also, I think the thing you said before, hang on, I've not eaten anything. Oh, there's something more to this than just like turning up and rolling through the aid station with a Percy
Yeah,
pig.
like I wanted to do it and feel comfortable. I didn't want to do it, and I wanted to know that I could do it and at the end be like, that felt great, rather than ow.
Yeah, there's a difference, isn't there, between tired and
Yeah.
sore? That's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's misery to be, and I often say this to people, like the people walking in the Ironman marathon, they're not having a casual stroll. It doesn't feel like a walk does on a Sunday. You're walking because it hurts too much to run. And that kind of walking looks to the observer like you're not really trying, but it's hard to express how hard. Like I've been there. We've all been there. You've all walked a race because you've had to. And it's misery because every step your quads feel as though you've done 5,000 squats the day before.
Yeah. Yeah. It's intense. It's an intense situation. And
Yeah.
I like, in my mind, I'd conquered it if I could smile all the way through and be like, that was great. I've really enjoyed that. Yeah.
So that was the aim for Ironman number 2. So tell us what you
Yeah.
signed up for next then.
So I signed up for Latesman because I thought, also, is it about the brand? I don't know. I'm going to go for something that's not Ironman branded. And everyone recommended Latesman. Absolutely amazing race. Loved it so much. They are lovely. And we go on holiday to the Lake District every year. So I thought, I could just kind of like fit it in casually. So that was my choice for the next one, like a bonus.
In terms of different approach to training and things you did slightly differently leading up to Lakesman, what was similar and what was different going into Lakesman? Sort of Ironman 2, what was different in your head?
Well, the thing that I noticed was that most of the training was, I feel like I switched to mostly outdoor training when I could leading up to Lakesman, because it was so much, it was a much lighter, because it was earlier in the year, and it was just, it felt less of a drag. And it was also really different because I did most of the training on my own, because I lost my training buddy. And it was just doing things on your own gives you a completely different headspace. And not that I did every train session, because I have like friends who did long runs with me and it was great. I was like to mix it up, but the majority of the bikes were on my own. That was really different, but it made you stick to plan a bit better.
Well, I was going to say, how is it different? What from the perspective of someone who's done the first one? I don't want to say like socially, but it sounds like you were mainly driven by I'm going to train with my friend, I'm going to train with friends, we're going to, like, it's amazing riding the bike.
Yeah.
The second one sounds like it was more about the performance, and it was more about doing the training to set levels rather than just getting the distance done.
So with the 3 Ironmans, each bike training has been really different. And yeah, so the first one was quite social, and it was just like, yeah, we're going to have a great day, we're going to go out for 6 hours, and it's all very casual and great, and it was fantastic. And then Lakesman training was hard because it was like learning to ride again, on my own, and just getting used to talking to myself in my head and not going crazy. And also, I didn't know, I always worry that I always pick the easy option. And so I sometimes often will pick something harder so that I feel challenged, that I know that I've done the hardest now. So I know I can do it mentally. So therefore it is easier. Once you've conquered it mentally, it's not necessarily about physically being able to go and do all the Surrey Hills. It's like, I know I can do them because I've done them once, so it should be fine. And it was a bit like that. Weirdly, I signed up for a lot of sporties because I am always terrified about getting lost. I'm terrified about getting a puncture and not being able to fix it. So for that training, I went, and every weekend before, if I knew I had like a 5-hour ride, I'd be like, right, okay, there's a 70-mile sportive in the area, I'm going to pick that, and then I can cycle home. And if it's not long enough for 5 hours, if it's too long, I can do this. And that worked really, really well for me because somebody else has made that route, so I know it exists. I'm not going to end up in a forest, which I happen all the time to do. And then if I have a trouble, I can call someone, and then maybe they'll come and help me get my bike or something, so it's not too traumatic. And I did a lot of those. And there was one, like the race sim weekend, and I had to ship my bike to Austria, but I did, that was it, I shipped my bike to Austria, but I did a sportive before that on my own, and that was some crazy one in Carlisle, and it was like just mentally hilly and stuff. But I really think those sort of rides, because they're really challenging and they're a lot crazier than you think, and you're on your own, you feel like really prepared. So by the time I got to Lakesman, I was like, well, I've done these sportives and they were not routes I would ever have chosen, and they're a lot hillier or tougher, or the road surfaces are different to what I would normally pick, and it's not boring, because that's the trouble. I get really bored really, really quickly. If it's a sportive, I'm like, oh, I've never done this before, this is exciting. Yeah,
I think it's a really good tip actually for all kinds of athletes. I think using sportives as part of the build, especially for the long distance stuff, it just really shakes the training up, and it's hard enough getting the really long rides in without the feeling of heading off and I'm just going to be bored all the way through this.
Yeah. And also you've got all your aid stations if you need them, so it's more like replicating an actual race, isn't it? Because if you're out on a long ride for 6 hours, you probably have to loop back to your house to refill your water bottles or something, or find somewhere nearby.
So Lakesman, then, for people who don't know, it's in the Lake District in the UK. It's in June, mid-June time. So you've got really long day, so very different experience daylight wise to how Austria was, but it's also an amazing lake venue, isn't it, for the swim?
It's such a good event. It's so good. You swim in Derwent water, and you swim around like this little island and go back, and it's just so nice. It's incredible. It's cold, but in a good way. I don't know if that makes sense, but you know what I mean. It's just really nice, really beautiful scenery. And you the bike, the swim is like in the lake in the town centre, and then the bike goes up to Cockermouth and then up along the coast to Worksop and then back down again. So the bike isn't actually mostly in the Lake District, it's sort of along the coast, and it is challenging. Really challenging. The wind was crazy, and I don't think that's normal. I feel like we had an unusual, I don't know, I felt like speaking to people who've done it afterwards, they were like, oh, there's a bit of wind, but it wasn't that crazy. But this was intense going against it.
It's exposed, isn't it? It's exposed in
Really
one
super
direction all the time.
exposed.
Yeah.
It's not like Austria, that's for sure.
And what was your experience of the bike on race day compared to how you'd been at Austria? How did you feel sort of prepared wise for it?
So I feel like I didn't do my best on the bike, because I got really bored of my food because I didn't bring any pretzels, that's for sure. So I just got really bored of what I was eating. I had a lot of naked bars and I had some Velo Forte cubes. I ended up throwing the Velo Forte cubes on the road by accident. So I lost some of that. My naked bars, I just got really bored of them. And I had Tailwind, which was a new addition to my fuel, which worked really, really well. Really liked that. But it just, on reflection now, I just don't think it was enough, because I remember the wind was blowing against me and I was supposed to be at like 160 watts. And I was just looking down and saying I was doing 130. And I was like, oh, that's rubbish. I just had no. But then I knew it was psychological, because sometimes when the scenery got nicer or when it got hillier, or, just not a flat road, suddenly my watts were normal again. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm getting bored of what I'm eating and I'm getting bored of the scenery. I think that's what happened. But yeah, I think compared to Austria, I think for me, things that make me do well are things that are interesting to see. And it wasn't the nicest scenery compared to Austria. Austria was incredible, but this was like, oh, okay, I've been to the Lake District a lot. I'm going up to the coast now. Oh, there's some sea, yay. It wasn't mountains.
So it sounds like you're the kind of athlete who feeds off the environment around them quite a lot, and without something, or to flip it over to make it more positive, if you do events where the scenery is amazing, you're going to feed off that. And the challenge for you is to fuel yourself, even if you're bored, is to find something to be fueled by with the scenery, even if there's nothing to see.
I needed treats and I didn't bring any treats. That was my problem.
Again, really, really common. I think people get bored on the bike and people get bored of what they eat on the bike. And often something that's worked well in training doesn't work well on race day. Loads of gels in a water bottle worked great in training, and then on race day it's really hot and you're trying to drink warm syrup, and it's like these are the issues that come up for people that certainly first timers don't see and recognize. And it's easy to sit here in the cold light of day and go, well, even if you're bored of it, you need to eat it anyway. But the reality is our brain plays a trick on us at the time and goes, well, I'm just not doing that. But you need to eat. Well, I'm not doing. So what are you going to do about it? They're the challenges that you need to overcome that aren't dealt with by Zwift, that are not dealt with by a training plan. All of this is going to be derailed if you choose to not eat enough calories, essentially.
Yeah. And I feel like on reflection, losing a few aero watts from having some pretzels would have actually not been too bad compared to dropping my watts all the time because I was getting bored. And I did suffer a bit because I slept on the sofa the night before, because we had the C word in the house. I was like, oh no, I've got to annex myself to the sofa, and then ended up being all scrunched up on the bike and not having a great time. So
wow,
it was a bit
challenging day before.
It was really challenging. Yeah.
On the run then, you managed to get yourself to the end of the bike ride eventually. How did that feel?
So the run was actually great. I really enjoyed it. So the first, I think it's like 5 laps, and the first like couple of laps I was like, oh, this is great. Like the cheering was exactly what I wanted, and my family were there, which is not like normal for them, so it was really nice. And the course is okay, because I do feel laps break it down so much easier than just doing a long marathon course. I think you can just take the chunks and be like, okay, lap 1, lap 2, it's fine. The first 2 laps were fine, but I could feel myself wanting to walk more, and I thought, oh, I haven't fueled properly, because that's my sign now that I know that if I feel a little sad or if I feel like I want to walk, I know that I've not done it right. And I could see on the aid stations they had like lots of interesting things, but I'm vegetarian, and they had jelly sweets. I was like, oh, I can't have those. And I thought, oh, I could have crisps, I suppose. So I tried some crisps, but they're not really gonna help. A little tiny cup of crisps, and they had Coca-Cola, and I haven't drunk Coca-Cola for 8 years. So I thought, oh well, maybe just this once, I'll try it and see how it goes. Well, I had like 1 cup of Coca-Cola. I was flying. Like the third lap was incredible. And then from then on, I had a Coca-Cola at every aid station, and I had like the best run of my life. It was amazing. Yeah.
All of this is pointing towards the challenge being fueling, isn't it? It's all around every time Jessie has sugar, Jessie feels better. When she feels better, she can run. And this is a thing that everybody experiences. It's not just you. It's a very real. My very first coach said in your Ironman, if you feel good, slow down and eat. If you feel bad, eat. And I was like, well, there's got to be more to it than this. And I think his point was basically, when you're feeling good, don't take the opportunity to absolutely hammer yourself. Use that opportunity to fuel yourself while you're feeling good. And if anything changes, if your mood changes, if the way you feel about the race changes, eat, because it's very probably blood sugar related. And it sounds like you've been through exactly the same thing. The glass of Coke during an Ironman is just like, it can be the magic elixir, can't it?
It was. I never would have believed it, how magic it was, but it was insane. And the weird thing is, when you're hungry, you know what hunger feels like, but when you're running and you're hungry, that's not what it feels like. And you just feel sad or in pain. Weirdly, once you have the sugar, you're not sad and in pain anymore. It's so bizarre, but it worked. Yeah, it was incredible. And then afterwards, I ended up doing a personal best for a marathon. So after that, the third lap, pulled it out the bag.
It's our personal best for a standalone marathon, let alone. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I know. And it was like by 15 minutes, I think, as well. Crazy.
So it sounds like this is the point the pennies dropped about the fueling thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to the end of that and went, I can remember us having this discussion at the time. Oh, I get it now.
Turns out you need fuel. Yeah.
Turns out this is why you keep badgering me about how many calories per hour I'm taking in, boss. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like with like all the science behind it, like this many carbs, and I sit down and I work out, oh yeah, I need this many carbs, this much an hour. And then you go, well, that's like 12 naked bars. I'll just have 12 naked bars in my little fuel cell. And then when you get to it, you're like, oh, I really don't want that. I don't want that at all. And so for my next race, I was prepared for that feeling totally. And I was like, I'm going to take treats. I'm going to treat myself around this race next time.
Right. Brilliant. So talk us through the strategy then. The third Ironman here in 13 months is Ironman Portugal, which was not too long ago now, was it? It was back in October.
No, there's 3 months between Lakesman and Portugal. So I finished Lakesman, because there was so much stress about everyone getting ill before, and like even though it was really good, I felt like I wanted that Ironman experience again. I wanted to see what it was like without the COVID protocols and everything. So I signed up for that. And the training was very different again, because I changed like all my nutrition before as well. I was eating so much more than I've ever eaten in my life, and actually fueling for, I know it sounds stupid, doesn't it? I was actually fueling before I did exercise in the evenings and at work, and it worked so much better for me. Doing all those things we're meant to do.
Be kind to yourself here. It doesn't sound stupid at all. What it sounds like is the same thought process almost everybody goes through. And then you have this revelation of, oh, look at that. If I feed my body enough calories, it will respond completely differently. We live in this like mindset of scarcity, don't we? Well, I haven't got time to eat. I'll get on and do this. I don't think you've gone through anything different to an awful lot of people who have this moment of, well, it's kind of obvious now. I've said it to myself, but it doesn't make it feel like I should be doing it at the time.
Yeah. And having actually a lot more carbs during the week, so that when I got to my long ride at the weekend, I could, I was fine. I was absolutely able to do those things. Whereas I think before, when I hadn't been necessarily, like that trick where you're like, oh, well, I've got to run this evening, so maybe I'll have a chocolate bar because that's fueling, right? But it's not. It was a completely different mindset leading up to that race, and it really changed a lot. It was really, really good.
Okay.
Yeah, so I changed that. And then for the actual bike fueling, I brought all the treats. So I went to like a fancy food shop, and I looked at all their chocolate bars and all their like confection, and I was like, okay, I'm going to buy a really expensive chocolate bar and treat myself. So it was like a vegan Mars bar, and I put it in my bag, and I knew that I was allowed it halfway. So I was looking forward to it the whole time, and it was so sugary and disgusting. It was great.
How many more calories did you have, do you think, on the bike during that one than you'd had at either Lakesman or Austria? Did you work it out afterwards in terms of like calories per hour, carbs per hour, things like that?
I did. I worked it out by carbs. I haven't got the data, but yeah, I worked it out. I tried to aim for like, I think it was like 80 grams an hour. And so I had a real selection this time. I had naked bars, but I also had like raw velo bars as a different thing, and I had Velo Forte cubes, and I even had crackers from Gales, because I was like, I'm gonna have the poshest crackers as a treat. I never ate them, but I had them with me because I felt like the minute that I got bored, I could have one, and it would like something savory, just something a bit different. And I had a Kendall mint cake, which is just pure sugar, isn't it? And that was really good as like a palate cleanser, just something different to stodgy chocolate and sweets. It was like, a bit of mint. And I sound like it was very luxurious. I had Tailwind. So I had previously always had like one bottle of Tailwind and then a bottle of pH, but I decided to go all Tailwind this time, and I made the concentrate a little stronger. So I was getting more carbs in one bottle, and I bought a bottle that's slightly larger than a normal bottle. It's like 900 milliliters rather than 750. So I knew that I could cram loads more into it.
Yeah.
So I had that, and then I had a bottle of Active Root as like a gingery, like in case I felt a little bit it's sickly and sweet. I had something that could cut through all the sweetness.
Yeah.
So it was good to have a mixture. And then I had sachets of Tailwind. So when I stopped it was near the second lap. I stopped and I replenished my Tailwind. So I think I got a lot more carbs on that, just also alone by the Tailwind.
And it looks like the two strands that are appearing here for you are, firstly, more calories worked really well, but secondly, having a variety of things you could choose from meant that you didn't, you worked out what the issue was, which was boredom with the thing, and so you had lots of different options, and also they were a treat for you. I think that's really important. The thing we talked about before about the inner chimp banging his cymbals along with you, like every time the chimp gets fed something different, the chimp's really happy, and happiness what's a real thing, right? So
happiness are a real thing.
If you're having different things and you feel like, great, I'm treating myself, I'm having this thing, I am worth this, I have trained for this Ironman, I'm having the most expensive vegan chocolate bar that there is. Which again, it's great that this works for you, because chocolate never worked for me. If I tried to have chocolate on the bike, couldn't stomach it. Love it the rest of the time, but I think an athlete has to work out what works for them. Yeah. And for you, it's more calories and it's variety of calories. You've nailed that, and it's taken you a couple of races to get there, but now you have. It's almost like you're not holding yourself back anymore by lack of food choices and lack of calories, and now you get to see what your physiology is capable of and what your fitness is capable of on race day.
Yeah. And like now I look forward to it, because I'm like, I'm not going to have a Coca-Cola again for another year. But when it comes to race day, I'm going to have about 4 liters of it. It'd be great.
Yeah, totally. So I want to put some numbers on the bike splits here for people. So Austria, you were 750 on the bike. Lakesman, you were 720 on the bike. Cascades, you were 640 on the bike. So obviously courses are different, but all things being equal, that's an hour and 10 minutes faster from Austria to Cascades in just over a year. Amazing. And part of that's going to be down to the fitness application, but part of it's down to racecraft and working out fueling and working out how to stay motivated by keeping the calories at the right level for yourself.
Yeah, it just that well, especially Portugal, that bike ride was absolutely joyous. It was amazing. It was interesting as well. And I think that's, for me, one of the most important things is how keeping my brain interested. And it was perfect for that.
So Cascais, is it a 2-lap bike course, Cascais? And is there a motor racing circuit involved at some point?
Oh, yes, it is so cool. So like the first few K, you go up like mountains into Sintra, and because it's at the beginning of the lap, it's not too bad because you're like, oh yeah, it's hilly, but it's fine. And then you go downhill into Estoril, and then they cut you into the Formula One race course, and it is so fun. It is the best. Oh, everyone around me was like, can you believe we're doing this? It's so cool. I know. It was brilliant. And then after that, you go down onto the coastal road, and you basically just go straight out to Belém, Lisbon, and then turn around and come back again. And that bit, it has many different things. So it has the hill cycling, and then it has like this crazy Formula One thing that's like, what is that? Don't know. Amazing, loved it. And then there's like out and back that's a real chance to get into aero. And I hadn't actually been training that much in aero because where I live, the potholes are awful, and I'm not confident enough going downhill. And I don't have a TT bike. I only have a normal bike with tri-bars on it, so I don't feel safe going down into aero too often. But that course was just, it was a dream. So going down and being on the aero bars was no issue at all. And because then you knew the course was going to go around again, you're like, oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to that hilly bit. Even though it's a hilly bit, it's still going to be interesting. And loved it. Really,
a bit of variety. Sounds like it played really well in your mindset there.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it was windy as well because it was on the coast, just like Lakesman. But I looked down and my watts weren't dropping. So I was like, okay, I'm happy with it being windy at this point.
And did you feel like the fueling strategy had worked with this as well?
Totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And how did you feel getting off the bike then?
Oh my gosh. So the last 10K of the bike was so painful, but it was okay because I was smiling, but it really, really hurt. Like my toe hurt so much. I thought I'd broken it. It was really, really bad. And I saw Ian from Oxygenaddict right in front of me, and I was like, I'm going to see if we can get into T2 at the same time. So I just was right behind him trying to see him in my sight as he was going around the corners. And then we got into T2 and I was like, hi! And then suddenly my foot didn't hurt anymore. It was fine. But it's like distraction. It was great. And then, there's like this really treacherous ramp down into T2, which is cobbles with a carpet over the top, and with cleats, you just feel like you're going to slide like a penguin on one of those rides going down. But it was good. And the run, as soon as I put my running shoes on, absolutely no issue with my foot at all, just carried on.
It's funny how that can happen, isn't it? It can be really painful, and then change your sport, change your shoes, you're away again. Yeah. And how did you feel on the run then, in terms of you fueled much better, you've stayed really mentally focused, the course has worked for you? How did you feel during the run?
So for the run, the course at Cascais is quite hilly, but hilly in a like undulating way. So it's not hilly as in, it's not like Holcombe where there's like a definite hill and then a definite downhill, and you kind of can walk up it and then run down it and you can justify it. But this, I didn't feel like I could justify it. I had to just keep going, which was actually probably really good, because if I had allowed myself to walk up the hills, I would have been walking so much. But it was just a slight incline. Where I train at home is hilly anyway, and I don't walk up the hills, so you just have to like get over it, be like, this is it now, this is how it is, it's fine. And the first like few K were they were always a little tough to get into, the first few, like the first couple. And then afterwards, there were so many aid stations. It really helped with the 9-1 walk run strategy. And then I allowed myself to walk through the aid station as well. But I tried to keep it as minimal as possible. So I literally ran up to the Coke stand, had a Coca-Cola, and then ran again. And I did have a Coke at every single aid station.
Good.
And there's
and
a
that's
lot.
a strategy that works for you, and it's worked for you because, so we mentioned before that the run at Lakesman was a 15-minute marathon PB to go 4:55. Yeah. Your marathon at Portugal was 4:30. So it was a 25-minute, another 25-minute open marathon PB.
I know. I have no
idea. What
idea.
point did you realize you were having such a good run?
I didn't know. I had no idea. I had no idea. I was just like, just keep going, it'll be fine. Yeah, I had no idea. I would have said it was the same as Lakesman, but maybe because of the hills, maybe slightly slower in my head. That's what I was thinking. But I wasn't really thinking about doing a time. I was just wanted to get around it. And I felt like walking would just prolong the situation. So I just had to keep going. Yeah.
Did you have any inkling how well you were doing relative to other people?
No.
You just kept on trucking.
No.
And so you crossed the finish line. Your overall time was 12:30?
12:48, I think.
12:48.
Yeah.
What went through your mind when you saw that coming down the finishing chute?
Well, I didn't see it when I went down the finishing chute.
No.
So I didn't see it. I didn't see the time because I'm blind as a bat and I did have my glasses on, so I couldn't read it. And then I got through the finish line and I was like, yeah, that was amazing. I was so high on sugar. It was madness. And I sort of skipped around to pick up my medal. And then I turned around to the board to see what my time was. And I thought it was wrong. I was like, no. And then I got like really worked up. It was amazing. Yeah, I mean, when I did Lakesman and I went through the finish line and I did 13 hours 48 and I didn't even look at the board. I wasn't interested. And then I got out and my sister was there and she said, oh, let me take a photo of you in front of your time because it's still on the board. And I was like, oh, that's not my time. That's just a random number. She was like, no, that's your time. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just a random number. Because I was thinking, like, I don't know why. I just thought it was just a random number because there was no way I was going to do it in that time. And then I started crying because I was like, no. So then to knock off another hour, I was like, no, that's not right. That can't be true. So yeah, it was amazing.
So it was like a 2-hour PB at Lakesman from Austria and then another hour PB at Portugal from Lakesman.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So that can't be right. You went from like 15:30 at Austria to 12:48 in just over a year. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I never would have believed that.
It turns out there's a very decent Ironman athlete hiding amongst all the fun and the unicorns and the pretzels and the aero bars. So what's next then? Come on, this is what I love to see. You've kind of revealed your superhero real identity. Turns out that Jessie's actually a really very useful iron distance athlete. What's next? What's the focus for next year?
Well, I'm gonna go again. Gotta do it again for sure. Yeah. No, I'm totally addicted now. I love it. I love the training, the distances. It's just right for me. It's just a good challenge level. And yeah, I think I'm gonna try for Bolton next year. Give that a go. And then maybe later in the year, see if I can cram in something else. See how it goes. It might break me. Bolton's quite tough, isn't it?
It is. Bolton's a challenging one, but you'll never be bored.
That's true.
You will not for a second be thinking there's nothing to look at on the Bolton bike course. You'll be watching out for the next corner.
Excellent.
And there's always this prospect as well. I mean, I shouldn't say this, but there's these extra 50 women for tri-Kona slots that are going on there as well. So is that something that you think, I mean, that would be an awesome arc to your story, wouldn't it, to end up in Kona one day?
It is a terrifying thought. But it is like a lofty, lofty dream that would be nice.
Well, you've got the natural ability, you've got the desire to work hard, you've got the enjoyment of working hard. That's three of the four horsemen right there. The fourth one's just getting some good luck on race day. And if anyone deserves it, it's you. So let's see where the cards fall, hey?
I mean, either way, I want to work hard enough to get to Kona one day. So, you know, whether it takes 12 Ironmans or not, I want to go there.
I think it's going to happen sooner than that. That's my professional opinion. But we'll see. We'll see. So much of it is luck meeting preparation. You've got the preparation part of it. It's just what happens can be in the hands of the gods sometimes. But yeah.
Lots of rainy rides in my future to see.
Well, there's a story then from 15 and a half hours to 12 and a half hours in a year. I love it. I love it. Powered by nice vegan chocolate and Coca-Cola.
Oh, yes. And happiness. What? Don't forget them.
Like in all seriousness, that's the place to end this on. It's the talking about the enjoyment and the happiness. That's the key to all this, isn't it?
Definitely. If you can do it with a smile on your face at the end, it definitely hurts less. And it feels great.
Brilliant. All right. Well, listen, Jessie, thank you so much for taking the time out to tell us about your crazy Ironman year. I've loved hearing all about it. If people want to find out more about you, are you on Instagram and all that stuff?
I am. I'm at Jessie Hassall, I think.
People will find you and they'll get to see the wide variety. The thing we haven't mentioned yet is you're possibly the brightest dressed triathlete out there with the stomp the pedal kit, aren't you?
Yes, and the pink hair and the coordinating pink outfit. Yep. That gives you extra cheers at races. It's good because they can spot you.
Well, there you go, listeners. If you are at an event next year and you see the brightly dressed pink haired lady, it's got to be Jessie. Give her a shout. Awesome. Well, listen, Jess, thanks for your time.
Cool. Thank you.